Welcome to Page to Picture, the podcast where we explore the magic of stories from the bookshelf to the big screen. I am your host, Kim.
And I am your host, Tiff. And today we are stepping through the wardrobe and into the magical world of Narnia as we talk about The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the iconic novel by C.S. Lewis and its unforgettable film adaptation.
And today we are thrilled to have a special guest joining us for this episode. He is a creative director, author, and lifelong science fiction fan with over 15 years of experience in advertising, marketing, and content creation.
Yes, his debut novel, Lily Starling and the Voyage of the Salamander, is an epic YA sci-fi adventure full of heart, humor, and high-stakes storytelling. Who doesn't love a sci-fi adventure, by the way? I just want to say I love sci-fi. I'm like in my sci-fi era right now. I've been looking up a whole bunch of books and oh my God. Anyways, but yes, it explores themes of identity, destiny, and found family, all set within a richly built world.
Yes, his work is inspired by classic space operas and deeply character-driven narratives, and he's currently working on the next book in the Lily Starling series. We are so excited to hear his insights on Narnia and how it's influenced readers and viewers alike.
Yes, so please welcome Christian Hurst. We are so happy to have you on the show. Hello.
Hi. Happy to be here. Thank you for
So
the
excited.
introduction.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for wanting to be on this podcast, for taking the time and reading Narnia and also watching the movie.
Yeah.
It's great. I'm a voracious reader. I read really fast. It's always fun to revisit a thin book like that.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it was like I did the Audible and I think it took like 4 hours. I was like, okay, that's like nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Okay, so before we get started, what is your connection to this book and the movie?
Sure. It's funny because the second we started talking about The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, I had memories of my childhood because in the summertime, my older brother, used to read to us during lunch, and this was one of the books he read probably when I was 8 or 9.
Yeah.
And so I just had these distinct memories of my brother's voice, reading this
that's so
quirky,
cool.
tale that I even remember at the time thinking was kind of trippy, kind of weird.
You're like, I went through like a time machine when I was
Yeah.
like reading this book, honestly.
Yeah. I remember the cover, the old 80s or 90s
Yes.
cover. We had an original, with the silver cover and the little spot illustration.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it just, for some reason, pretty vivid.
What about the movie? Do you remember ever watching the movie?
Yeah, I had saw it in the theaters, and it's fun. I remember that really distinctively as well because my mom really wanted to see it, and I think it was probably the last time, not last time my parents are still very much alive, but last time that I saw a movie in the theaters with them. So that that was a long time ago. But you don't really go to the movies with your parents after a certain point very often,
Yeah.
So. But yeah, so that was, at least that's the last one I remember. But we went, Christmas of that year, 2005 or whatever that was.
Yeah, I came out.
I remember my initial impressions that it was the special effects weren't as good as Harry Potter. I think it was the Goblet of Fire came out that year, and I was like,
comparing it.
I'm like, Disney, come on, you got Disney money, we could do better.
Yeah, you're like, get it together.
Oh yeah, I definitely want to talk about when I rewatched it. I was like, the effects. I mean, looking at it now, I was like, you could just tell the green screen of it all, and the animals that they were placing there. And I was like, I'm just gonna watch it for what it is, for the storyline. I'm not really gonna judge the time of the graphics and the CGI. We're just gonna leave that alone.
So we're just gonna ignore all of that and just move on.
One thing I noticed I watched it with my wife, and I was like, it's funny because you have these big areas and two characters. It's like that just expansive blue screen, sets, but then just one or two people in it. And she mentioned it almost felt like a play, and I was like, that is really interesting because it reads kind of like a play, and I'm pretty sure there have been theatrical versions of it. But I was like, when you look at the movie with that lens, it's like, oh, it kind of makes more sense if you think of it.
Yeah, definitely. I know I watched it with my husband and my son. My son had never seen it. So I was like, you need to watch this with us. He's 11. And he was like, all right. My husband and my son, we watched like all the lights were turned off, but like the parts where it was like the snow and it was like so bright on her face, on her eyes, we were just like, oh my God, it's just like a whole bunch of snow and it's just so bright.
Blinding.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah,
oh my
it's a lot.
gosh.
Yeah.
Because
It
it
gets
goes from
very
like,
bright.
yeah, it goes from like dark to light, dark to light, dark to
Yeah,
light.
it
So I was
does.
like, I need to turn a
Yeah.
light on and like watch
That
this
was that
movie.
era, like right around then when all movies had to have those scenes that were just really pitch black and you're like squinting to try to make anything out.
Yeah, you're like
Yeah.
trying to figure out who's in the scene. You're like,
Yeah.
who's speaking right now? I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. It's like HBO Max now with like, what is it? Game of Thrones. You know
Oh
what I'm
yeah,
saying?
Right.
Game of Thrones has so many dark like scenes that I'm like,
I don't even know what's happening.
Right.
who's in there. Is that Cersei? Okay. Okay, so let's dive into details about the book first. So the book title is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. The author is C.S. Lewis. The release date is October 16th, 1950. And
That
it was
blew my
first
mind.
published.
I'm sorry.
The
I was like,
1950?
yeah, I was like,
Oh,
whoa.
1950. I
Yeah.
remember it well.
I was like, what? I was like, what? That's like so crazy.
And yeah, for some reason, I don't know why I thought it came out like not later than 1950. I don't know. When I was
Like in the
younger, I was like, this
80s.
book just came out. Like in my head,
Yeah.
I'm thinking that, but yeah, I was wrong. So it came out in 1950. And the genres are fantasy, children's literature, adventure, and Christian allegory.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay.
And the tropes are portal fantasy, good versus evil, chosen one, found family, sibling bond. Which who doesn't love a good versus evil type story? I could eat
Yeah.
it up all day long.
I love a good
Always.
versus evil.
Literally. And this
Absolutely.
is yeah, it's so good. And this is the blurb, the classic version of the blurb. So it says Narnia, a land frozen in eternal winter, a country waiting to be set free. When Lucy Pevensie steps through an old wardrobe during a game of hide and seek, she discovers a magical land called Narnia, where it is always winter, but never Christmas. Soon her brothers and sisters join her, and together they are swept into a battle between the forces of good, led by the noble lion Aslan, and evil ruled by the White Witch. As the children fulfill an ancient prophecy, they learn about courage, sacrifice, and the power of belief in this timeless tale of adventure and redemption. And timeless is like an accurate, I don't know why, but I feel that like this story is so like, there is something timeless about this, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, right? Like, I feel
Yeah.
like timeless is a good word for it. I don't know.
I feel like it's been a part of like my life for a long time, for whatever reason. Like, I just know about the book. I know the movie, and I feel like it's just a classic. Like a lot of people know it. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people know it.
Asked someone if they'd
Yeah.
watched, because I told them I watched it, and they were like, "What is that?" And I was like, "What do you mean? What is that?" And I was like, "What?" And they're
You're
like, "I
like,
don't
go
know
on
what that
Disney
is."
Plus. It's streaming
And I
now.
said, "Well, we're gonna watch it right now, so come and sit down. You have no choice now." So
Okay, so let's do some facts about the movie real quick. So the movie title is The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Director is Andrew Adamson. Release date was December 9th, 2005. And for your cast, you have Georgie Henley as Lucy, Skandar Keynes as Edmund, William Mosley as Peter, Anna Popplewell as Susan, Tilda Swinton as Jadis, the White Witch, James McAvoy as Mr. Tumnus, and Liam Neeson as Aslan, which I didn't even remember Liam Neeson was the voice of Aslan. I was so thrown off by it.
how could you not know it was Liam Neeson?
I couldn't remember who it was. And then when I was looking at the cast, I was like, holy crap, it's Liam Neeson. Like, that's actually pretty cool. That makes sense.
I love Liam
I
Neeson.
remember being excited. I don't know if I've flipped this in my memory, but I like Liam Neeson a lot, and he was in this movie with like knights and stuff called Kingdom of Heaven. I don't know if you remember that movie, but so it kind of made me more interested in seeing this because obviously I was an adult when it came out, and then but I still went to with my family, and
Yeah.
it was fun. I think it was a fun time, and if I
Yeah.
remember correctly, that was 20 years ago. Jeez.
I know. I was like, this movie is so not old, but I was like, holy crap, 20
But
years
also,
ago.
don't forget Deep Roy. They left Deep Roy off of that cast list, and I love Deep Roy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there's a lot of good
Stacked
people. Yeah,
cast.
there's a lot of good people. When I was doing like research to see like what these actors have been up, I mean, obviously we know Tilda Swinton, James McAvoy, Liam Neeson, like we know those actors. But the actor who played Edmund, like he didn't really do anything after he did the Narnia series. Those were like the only things that he was like credited for. And then I think like Peter did some like shows and movies, and then Lucy did some stuff as well. But I know like Edmund, he only had like the Narnia on his stuff. I was like, well, he wasn't my favorite character, so
He's like, that's
Yeah,
all I need.
bravo to them casting some unknowns, though. I like when, like,
Yeah.
especially with child actors, you don't see the same faces all the time. And I thought Georgie Hensley, Lucy, was the standout. I mean, she's such a powerful little actor.
yes, she
Um,
held that like
Especially with the
she
older
did really
brother, like, was so
Peter,
weak,
yeah,
like, compared to, she was just, it's funny when they shared the screen because he was just like whiny and like,
yes,
all the
Yeah.
time. And
Yeah.
she's like, steals the screen every time.
she's got her little like comebacks, like
Yeah. She's like, get over it. We're going to do this, whether you like it or not.
she's like, I have an imagination, like it is
Yeah.
what it is. Yeah, I really liked her. She did really good for a young actress at the time, and I agree. I think that they had like the fact that they had no name actors for the kids. It was really good, and I feel like it brought, because you had three big name actors, James
Yeah.
McAvoy, Tilda
Mhm.
Swinton, and Liam Neeson. So I think to have like kind of no name actors for the kids, it was a good choice. I liked it. Okay, so let's dive into the book. Did you read more books in the Chronicles of Narnia series after this one ever, or was just like the one?
Yes, I do remember, after the first one, I think my brother read the second one. We may have read through all of them. I think I tried to revisit them later, but I always liked the first one the best because it was just kind of quirky and light and fun,
Yes.
and the other ones got a little bit more like, political and deeper intrigue, and I wasn't quite
Yeah.
into that as a child as much. But I didn't really grow with them, so I don't have strong memories of the other books. But
Yeah. What about you, Tiff? Did you ever read them after or watch them?
No. I just read the
I
first one,
know.
and then that was, I don't know why I didn't think to check to see if there were other ones, because when I read it in like 5th grade, I think. And I read it and I was like, oh, that was nice. And then I just kind of left it be. And then later on down life, I was like, oh, there's more. And I didn't know that. So I never read
I
after
don't
that.
think I saw the other movies either.
Yeah.
I think I saw one.
I remember reading the book in school, like for my own, like I saw it during the like book fest that, that they have. And I remember buying it, reading it. And I remember watching the movie in theaters. And then after that, I didn't read any of their books. But then I remember watching like the second movie, The Prince Narnia. And then I fell off after that. I was like, I don't really care. It wasn't as good as the first one when I watched it. So I'm curious when Tiff and I continue the series and we watch and read the second book and the third one, how I feel, because I honestly have no memory of it. But reading this first one and watching the first one, I had like a bunch of like memory and flashbacks come. And I was like, oh, I remember this scene is going to happen, or I remember reading about this. So the first one, I do know it for sure. Everything after that, it's like a blank. I have no idea. I can't remember anything
Yeah,
after
I'm gonna
that.
have to like shotgun read the rest of them just to,
Just to see.
see what's up. But
Yeah.
uh, it's really, it's interesting because it is a Christian allegory, and C.S. Lewis, obviously very, famous uh, theologian. But I didn't know that as a kid, and I grew up in a very
Same.
religious household. But I just thought it was a goofy, weird book.
Same.
And so until I was like an adult, and I realized the whole Christ allegory. But yeah, as a kid, I never realized any of that.
Same. I
Yeah,
read
me
it
too.
when I read, and even when I watched it, I was like, oh, this is a nice fantasy book, imagination going through a wardrobe, and you've got your evil person and your hero, and these kids are trying to save the day. And I was like, this is nice. Watching it now, I was like, oh, and reading it now, I was like, oh my gosh, this has like other meanings behind it. And I didn't realize that as a kid. And my son who watched it with us, I was asking his opinions on it. And it's funny because I know we're jumping ahead, but when Aslan sacrifices himself and dies and then comes back, he was kind of like, oh, he was like, is it kind of it's like, is it kind of like
Like
Jesus?
Jesus?
Yeah. And I was like, yes. I was like, you're too advanced for your age, kid. I was like, just chill. It's like, just enjoy the movie for what it is, a fantasy right now. Like, you don't need to go dive into that whole thing right now. You're 11.
Okay. So what stood out to you most about C.S. Lewis's writing or world building? Like what was it about it that you just like were drawn to?
I thought it was fun, and I think it's like he's using that kind of Tolkien language, but at the same time,
Yeah.
infusing it made it very approachable. It's almost like a Christmas kind of Santa Claus Wonderland story, but with
hmm
Lord of the Rings peppered in there. So, um, yeah, I thought that was good. If I remember correctly, and I should have read up on this before the podcast, but I think he was kind of like thinking of the novel visually before he started writing it, if I remember correctly. And it was kind of like he thought of like the snow and the lamppost and kind of the fantastical characters. And then he sort of wrote a plot around it. And then it was like even later in the process where he was like, oh, this is kind of like Jesus, like the same way we were just
They
talking about,
yeah.
where, and
him.
then he brought the Christian metaphor into it more explicitly. But like, so I think you feel that as you read it, but not in a bad way. It's just like it feels
Yeah.
natural, like the world was built in sort of an organic, way, and
Yes.
where like the later books, from what I remember of them, it's more like, well, the world is already set up, so it's a little more structured. But I like the fun messiness of this book.
Yeah, I liked it was like for me because I did the Audible. So for me, I liked it. It was like a blend of like it was like simple, but there was like depth behind it. And I feel like he did a really good job creating this like magical world for kids. Cause like as when I remember reading it as a kid, it just was I think like my real first introduction to like the fantasy world, right? Besides like Harry Potter, this was like
Yeah.
a different version. And I remember it was like an easy read. It was like nice. It was kind of like funny. There had like, the battle scenes. You had the siblings, good versus evil. So I think for a child,
Animals.
yeah, it was like, this is a
You can't beat
cool,
that.
you have Santa
Yeah.
Claus showing up and you're like,
Yeah.
this is kind of cool. So I think he did a really great job. And it's kind of crazy to have an author who can write a book. And as a kid, you're reading it, thinking one thing, and then you reread it as an adult and you kind of see like a deeper level, right, of it. And I think that's pretty impressive. And the fact that he wrote like, I think 6 books in this series, there was like 6 total when I looked it up.
Yeah.
It was impressive. And now I kind of want to read all 6 to see like where the story goes. I want
Yeah.
to see it all. What about you, Tiff?
I think it was very fairy tale-esque. Like
Yeah.
reading it, it is very cleanly written when it comes to like the simplicity, but it's
Mhm.
also not like so simple to where it's like not intriguing. And
Yes.
I think Christian said it right. Like it's kind of like Tolkien, but for like kids. You know what I mean? Like
I
something
love
like it's
that.
because
Yeah.
Tolkien is very hard to read for some people. And so I feel like this book is like that step before you read Lord of the Rings. You know what I mean?
The introduction.
Like I
Yeah.
want you to read The Hobbit, but I want you to read Narnia first so that way you can read The Hobbit. You know what I mean? So but
Yeah.
it
Good
has
one.
that very like fairy tale whimsical kind of vibe to it, which I liked because
Yeah.
it was like a very refreshing.
It's very playable too. Like I remember as a kid, and I don't know if, like when I was a kid, it was pre-internet, so we, and things were a little different. But I remember after we would be exposed to a new thing, we as siblings would just kind of play that thing for a while. And so like we were reading the book, and I remember like almost knocking over the chifforobe in my sister's room trying to pretend it was the wardrobe while we
That's
were
so
like going
cool.
I love
to
it.
Narnia, and like,
Yeah.
so I think it's that kind of thing that kids will latch onto and really take it and run with it,
Yeah,
their
definitely.
imagination.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about favorite characters in the book. So for me, my favorite character, I really enjoyed Lucy in the book. I felt like she was the bravest of them all.
Yeah.
Truly. She's just like sticks to her guns. She doesn't let anybody like push her around. And she like, when her brothers and siblings are like, no, you're not, you're imagining things. You didn't go anywhere. And she's like, no, I did. Like I went and I'm going to keep going back and I'm going to have fun with my friend, Mr. Tumnus. Like, I really appreciated her character in the book. So for me, it was Lucy. That was like my favorite character. What about for you, Christian?
Yeah, I wrote Lucy down because a couple of reasons. I think yes, there's this sort of as an adult you see how it's showcasing the innocence of youth, but the honesty of being a child and the ability to believe in things that
Mhm.
you kind of lose as you get older. But I also think uh, it's interesting now looking back to 1950 to have your protagonist be a little girl who has like more faith and guts than all her brothers,
Yeah.
and like we would call that so woke now, like, but
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
know what people thought
definitely.
of it at the time, but like I think
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I wish I could find out what people thought of it like back
I
then when they
know.
first read it,
It's
Like
funny
you
back then though, if it was a children's book, people probably didn't talk, that dismissed it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like,
They're
Mhm.
probably
They're
like,
like,
oh,
it's
it's just
fantasy.
whatever. Yeah.
right,
Yeah. It's
fantasy
fantasy.
children's book, it's like
Yeah. You're like, whatever. There's a talking lion. What are
it's
we
like,
talking
have
Yeah.
about?
you
You're
all
like, it's fine.
ever read Peter Pan? You probably did a show
Yes.
on it, huh? Yeah,
Yeah.
but that was my favorite as a kid. But when you revisit that as an adult, it's so violent, and there's
Yeah.
just so much
There's
stuff.
more to
It's
it,
like,
There's
really.
so much
wow.
more. It's not
Yeah.
just the Lost Boys. There's like a whole bunch of other stuff in
Yeah.
Yeah,
it.
But
definitely.
like people just dismissed it, it's like don't
Yes.
even think about it.
That's so funny. I liked Aslan. I I can never
Nice.
go wrong with like a wise, powerful, compassionate character. Like I'm drawn to those characters. So like Gandalf and like Dumbledore, like they're my favorites. And I think it's just because they're like the way they talk, they just have a lot of meaning behind their words, even like
Yeah,
just by like just saying one word and you're like, "Oh, you're so smart." Like like I just
I
love it.
know.
So yeah, I liked him. But Lucy is great too. She's very inspiring for little girls.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Um, so how did the themes like good versus evil, sacrifice, redemption land for you when you were reading it?
Um yeah, like I said, I didn't pick up on the deeper themes when I was a kid. I think it was I liked just more like things like the talking animals and
Mhm.
the interaction between the characters. The um good versus evil. I mean, like every kid's book, at least when I was growing up, had kind of a good versus evil plot.
Yeah.
So I think it just was par for the course in that way. But I just remember it being very fun and not stressful. You know how some kids book, even like some of my favorites, like Roald Dahl books and stuff, how
Yes.
they like stress you out when you're reading them 'cause
Yeah.
as a kid, it's like what's gonna happen, but
Yeah.
I don't remember any anxiety or anything from Narnia. I just remember it being very like chill,
Just
Yeah.
going
which
through the
is
journey with
I know
that.
we're gonna talk about the movie, but like in the movie, I think it's totally different. The movie's like stressful, but the
Yeah.
Exactly.
but the book was just like very calm, and even the conflict feels like, I mean, it's this lady with who can make magic candy and rides around in a dog sled or whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
it's not too intimidating in the book, I don't think.
Yeah, no, I agree. The book isn't intimidating. It was like that's why when I was listening to it, it was just like listening to just somebody telling a children's story. Like it was very calm and it was just like you're just I don't know, you're just listening to it. And then at the time I'm just like, okay, well, these are my characters. I'm like trying to figure out who I like, who I don't like. I know I didn't like Edmund at first. I was like, I cannot stand this character in the book. And
Yeah.
I'm like, in the book, I was like, I cannot stand him. But for me, like when we're talking about the themes and reading it like now as an adult, I feel like Edmund's journey, he had such an arc change. Like he grew, I feel like he grew so much. And I love how Aslan like gives him like that grace and like when Edmund shows up and Aslan is there with all the siblings, and he's like, we're not going to talk about the past. Like, Edmund did what he had to do, and we're going to like move forward. And then when I read that, I was like, okay, I'll move forward too. Like, I'll forgive him.
Like me as well.
As a reader, I will also forgive him. If Aslan tells me to forgive him, I will forgive him.
Yeah.
What about you, Tiff?
Well, when I was listening, because I listened to it as well, and it was very relaxing to the point where I forgot that I had to actually
Take notes.
not really pay attention, yeah, but take notes for the podcast. So when after like the audiobook ended, I was like, oh, that was really nice. It was really like, because like I read a lot of like epic, like there's fights and stuff, like
Yeah,
like
the
lately I've
fantasy
been
book.
rereading like The Hobbit, right? So that's like my mind. And so when I was listening to this one, I was like, oh, this is so nice. It's like very like, chill, and I was just
Okay.
sitting on my couch. Yeah, I was like, this is nice. And then I forgot. I was like, oh my god, there's actually like I have to take notes about this. So I had to rethink about it. And I think the only thing that stood out to me was like the sacrifice, like that happened with Aslan. Like I feel like that alone is just a great theme to note, because his death represents so much more than just like a plot point.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, that was the only takeaway I got from it, just because when I was a kid and I read this, I didn't think about themes at all. And now as an adult, I still don't think about the themes.
Yeah, when I read, I'm just like,
because I was like, this is just that story. This is just that kind of story where it's like I really don't need to overanalyze or try to figure out what's actually happening behind the words. It's just there for me, and that's it.
Yeah, that's
So,
how I felt too.
yeah.
Okay, so let's dive into the movie, guys. So, what was your overall impression of the adaptation now? Like, when you watched it now, how do you feel that they did comparing it to the book?
I thought it was well made for what it
Mhm.
is. I think
Mhm.
the mandate obviously shows through that the filmmakers were trying to make a more epic fantasy than the book, than the
Mhm.
source material, which makes sense given that it was going to be a series of films. I don't remember how many did they end up making, all the ones that they planned on, or
No, they
okay,
made
that's yeah.
3 total.
Right,
Yeah.
but I remember they weren't very successful or something, and they stopped. Yeah, but the plan I think was to have this epic series of profitable movies, and I think you can feel that a little bit, especially with the big stars in roles that, like, for
Mhm.
me, not to get into the weeds too much, real quick, but like, Mr. Tumnus is such a quirky character in the book, and in the movie he was so serious, and like um it just felt a little, I don't know, awkward.
Traumatized,
Yeah,
kind
the
of.
energy was just like
Yeah.
so like intense, and
Yeah.
obviously McAvoy did a great job playing the character, as written, but like it was I felt some of those scenes were a little awkward with like Lucy, and then like this very serious like shirtless dude playing opposite this 10-year-old
I
girl.
thought
Like it was
they
just
had very, like, close
oddly
face-to-face
intense.
scenes and,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's just one example, but I think that's where it for me departed from the book, was mostly in the mood of it. It's not that it wasn't well made, but it was just like a totally different feeling.
Mhm.
Yeah, enjoyed it. I thought the movie was beautifully done. I liked how they went from, the reality world into the world of Narnia. I remember
Yeah.
watching it for the first time, and when Lucy first enters Narnia, I remember watching it 2005. I was like 15. I was like, this is actually really cool. Like, I love this transition. And then watching it now, I still thought it was really done, like really cool and beautifully done. And I feel like, besides the drama, right? Because I feel for a movie, they have to put a little bit more drama. They have to make their fighting scene a little bit more intense. But I felt like it stayed pretty true to the book as far as like the storyline
Yeah.
Mhm.
goes.
I think so too.
So I think it stayed true to the book, but it still gave us like cinematic moments that like a movie has to do, right? They're like, well, if
Yeah.
we're gonna do this, we're gonna go big. And I agree. I think they were trying to do like a full series, kind of like Harry Potter. They were trying to like, let's
Yeah.
make this into a series. And then I honestly think after the first one, the 2 and 3 didn't do really good because I don't even remember going to the theaters or trying to even wanting to watch those ones. So I think that's where they fell.
That was the era where Disney had that series of flops, and they I think that was part of that whole thing, if I remember my studio history correct.
What about you, Tiff?
It did well for what it was. It did when I was rewatching it. It gave me like very mild Lord of the Rings vibes, like the type of shots they would do of them like walking through the snow and like, you know what I mean, like how they had the shots of like above whatever.
Yes.
And I was like, that's very fun. I like that. I think I think just for what it was, I think they did good. It did stay true to the book, in my opinion. So, I mean, as long as the plot was there and it wasn't changed to just make it so like crazy, then I liked it. So
I thought the directing was very good, especially in the smaller moments, like you mentioned when she was going through the wardrobe, like how they did the practical effect where it goes from the fur coats to the fur trees. I really liked how simple that shot was, or some of the stuff more in close quarters. It's like when they pulled out and had all the CG, it didn't work as well. But like in the more intimate moments, I thought it was well directed.
Yeah, because you feel like, and we'll talk about later in this podcast because I know they're trying to redo the Narnia now, but you feel like they could have gone completely opposite. Like when Lucy first goes through the wardrobe, they could have done like this bright light. They could have made it so dramatic, but I do enjoy the way they did it where she's walking through, and even when all the kids are walking through and the coats and falling into the snow. And then even at the end when they're older and they're walking back, that transition of them like being curious, like, oh, what is this? And then you hear them like arguing and bickering, like, you're stepping on my toes, just move over. And they fall out of the wardrobe. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, I agree. Like the smaller scenes where it's like more intimate, those were done really well. I do enjoy those. Okay, let's talk about casting. So what are our thoughts on the casting of the siblings? And then you've got Aslan, the White Witch. Do we like the casting for I know we kind of mentioned earlier, but how do we do we feel like they did a good job portraying these characters?
I thought the Lucy, obviously, and then the actor that played Susan, I thought was really good too. The boys weren't as strong, I didn't think. The funny thing is, what was the middle boy?
Edmund?
Edmund. Is that his name? Yes.
Yeah.
And then Edmund, Peter. I found Peter annoying. I thought Edmund was okay because he was supposed to be kind of a little brat. But I kept forgetting about him, and then I was like, oh yeah, he's kind of central to this whole movie. But
you're like, he's trying to be the
huge
hero.
impression on me. The guy who played the professor in the real world, he's in a bunch of Disney movies around that time. He was in a movie Around the World in 80 Days. I don't know.
I love that movie.
I love that movie. It's a bad movie, and I love that movie. I've watched it like 100 times.
Same. I will put it on.
It's like comfort food. Yeah,
it's a comfort movie.
But he's he's that guy, that kind of character actor, and I always enjoy him. But and then I thought that the voices of the animals were very good. But
yeah, I did enjoy the casting. I thought, like we mentioned, Lucy was perfect. Edmund did the job of me disliking him because I disliked him in the book. And so I think he did really good in the movie, because when I was watching it, I was like, God, this kid is so annoying. I can't stand him. Why are you lying? Why are you trying to just eat all these Turkish delights? Like, is that all you really want? Like,
he just wants the sweet treats.
Oh my gosh. I love Liam Neeson, so I love that he was the voice of Aslan. I thought he did it so good. It was like soothing and like majestic.
It was just his natural voice.
Yeah,
man.
fits.
Liam
And
Neeson
if
just
he did
speaks.
Like read,
exactly,
he
I'd
can
listen
read
to
me.
him read the phone book. Yeah,
Yeah, I would listen to him read everything under the
Yeah.
sun just because it's nice. It's soothing.
well, sorry, and Deep Roy, of course, because I love Deep Roy, and
Yeah.
and it's just so funny because Tilda Swinton is so like imposing, and then you've got Deep Roy who's just always. I just can't see him without smiling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the casting director did a really, really good job casting everybody in this film. Susan, I honestly just Susan and Peter, I kind of put in the back of my mind because I would forget about them. I really felt it was like Lucy and Edmund were the two that
Yeah.
were like
Yeah.
they had the storyline, and I feel like Peter wanted to be wanted to be the hero. He wanted to join the war. He wanted to be this older sibling, doing all these things. And he was annoying to me too. I was like, you're kind of annoying in this movie. Susan, I kind of just forgot about her almost. I was like, I wonder
Yeah,
if
me
she
too.
has, and so it makes me wonder, I wonder if she has more story arc in the second and the third movie, because she didn't really have much in this one. For me, I was like, it's fine. I was fine with them. I was like, whatever.
Yeah, I agree. I totally forgot about Peter for the longest time throughout the entire movie, and anytime he was on screen, I was like, "Oh, that's the older brother." I keep forgetting, and I was like, "Jesus!"
It's
Like I
so
couldn't.
worthless.
Yeah, he's really, he really is. So I was like, okay, but I think the younger siblings, perfect casting. You can never go wrong with Liam Neeson and Tilda Swinton. And then I'm just a huge fan of anything James McAvoy does. So I was like, just the fact that he
Yeah.
played Mr. Tumnus, he does play the role. He does make it very awkward, the role, because he is very like, there's like a dark undertone to Mr.
I
Tumnus,
literally
which
was
I
like,
did not get in the book. I was like,
yeah, he was very.
but James McAvoy is a good, he did do that very well. So I
Yeah.
give him that. But yeah, so I don't know. I just think the casting was great. I don't know. I think maybe just Peter was like, I just didn't
really
have
curious.
a care in the
I'm
world.
really curious as we watch the second and third one how Peter and Susan evolve their storyline.
I'm probably still gonna forget about Peter.
They're probably
There's-
I don't if they even like really matter for them because Edmund and Lucy are the youngest.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I think
Even the battle scene.
what I mentioned earlier about it, sometimes it felt like a play, because you have like James McAvoy, who's a very strong actor,
Mhm.
and I'm thinking of that scene in the prison cell specifically in like the
Yes.
ice prison, and it's like Tilda Swinton and James McAvoy just acting their hearts out on this like obvious blue screen soundstage. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I think there were a couple moments like that threw me out of the movie where it's like the acting was almost too good for the
Yeah.
movie, and
You're
it
like, this is just
there's like nothing
Narnia.
else around. It's just like two people acting in a room, and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It throws you out for a second, but it was entertaining. I'm not gonna knock it.
Yeah. Okay, so what was your guys' favorite scene in the film?
Flip flop. Okay, so the the I mean anything with Deep Roy again because I'm a huge Deep Roy fan. But
Yeah.
I think my favorite scene has to be when Santa Claus gives them the weapons
Yeah.
of war, and he's like, "Ho ho ho! Look, Christmas is coming back. Here's a big ass sword for you to go kill
literally.
some like got some mayhem." Like
Here,
Santa
here's
comes
your
and drops
the
some
weapon.
violence on
Yeah,
the story.
literally.
Like we've been all like chill and like fantasy land, and now Santa's like dropping in the violence.
He's
Yeah.
like, you guys need to like defeat her. You
They're
need to
like,
kill
Santa's
her.
like, this
"Santa,
is real time.
bow and arrow,
Yeah.
sword."
And the kids are just like, well, this is
They're like,
cool.
cool. I mean, I was a 12-year-old boy once, and like somebody hands me a broadsword, I'm like,
But I like how he's like, I think he says, he's like, these are not toys.
yeah,
These
right.
are,
Yeah.
these are
I'm like,
weapons.
all right, Santa, you're sending mixed messages now. It's like you're Santa Claus.
I like how like Edmund doesn't even have anything. They're like, you're a bad boy. You're on the naughty list. You don't get a weapon at all. Like
Santa's
nothing.
like, anyways, moving on.
Not even like, oh, hey, give this to Edmund when you guys see Edmund.
Right.
He's just like, no, you guys get the gifts. Edmund gets nothing.
Hey,
Like,
it's
okay.
this lump of coal,
Yeah. He's like, he had Turkish
send
Delight.
Edmund this for me.
Yeah.
He's like, here's his Turkish Delight. That's all he
Yeah,
ever
he's
wanted.
like, he had Turkish Delight with the White Witch. He's fine. You guys get weapons.
I can't. Okay, so for me, even though it was very the CGI was not it. I
CGI
did
was
enjoy
CGI-ing.
the battle scene because I love movies, so I love when they kind of, because in the book it's not really like intense and detailed as it is. Obviously for a movie you have to like make it a whole situation, a whole deal. So I enjoyed the battle scene. I like seeing all the creatures that they had, all the different animals, and I think there was like, what was it? Like centaurs. There was like just a whole bunch of different animals, and seeing them battle it out, I really enjoyed. And there was a moment where I had to turn to my husband, and I was like, "Is she wearing Aslan's fur that she cut off when she's in her battle scene?" And she looks like because she's stopped wearing her winter outfit. And it looks like she's wearing his
Yeah, isn't
fur.
it his fur?
Ugh.
I don't know.
It's so weird.
I was like, she thinks she's the lion. Like, I feel like she
It's
was like
weird.
wearing his fur that she cut off. I was like,
Yeah.
she is so crazy.
And she needs to get it
The
together.
battle was, I thought, even though the CG was, even for the time, not the best, but I think it was consistent stylistically. So it,
Yes.
well, as long as you stayed in the world, like I said, there were a couple set pieces like the jail that like threw me out, but especially in the battle, I thought it was very consistent, and so it was enjoyable, and the sound mixing was very good. I think they won an award for the sound. So,
Oh my
but
gosh.
but it was, that brings you in, I think, and
Yeah.
like, I love seeing all the magical creatures fighting each other.
Yeah, I thought
Yeah.
I really like a battle. I really enjoy battle scene. So I thought that scene was really good. And I also enjoyed there was a scene, and only because I saw the behind the scenes on this one, where they're crossing the river and he gets the sword and like smash to break off the ice, and then the whole like water comes and like goes over them. Do you know what scenes I'm talking about? And I remember watching the behind the scene. I don't know where I saw it. It was like a random day. I watched like the behind the scenes on that. And like they really were, I mean, obviously it was green screen, but they had like their little ice platform that they created. And then behind them was like they made like a real big wave that like went over them. So when I was watching it, I was like, this was actually done really well. Like it looks really good. That the fact that they actually did this whole thing with the water, it went over them
That's cool.
in their heavy coats.
Yeah, and they're
That
when
bothered
I
me.
see them walking around with their heavy coats, I'm like, I could never. That thing would be weighing me down. I'd be slow. Like,
I
let's
love
be
Edmund.
honest.
Edmund in his coat, because it was like a woman's coat and it was like
Yeah.
short at his like ankle.
They really did Edmund so dirty in this movie.
He was so annoying though. I just could
Well,
not.
that did remind me when Peter like teased him, and I'm just like, oh, like casual homophobia was just a normal thing in like kids movies back then.
Yeah,
it's
you
like,
wouldn't
It
pick
really
up on
a
it.
girl's coat. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah, I watched that and I was like, ooh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay. I like when Lucy first discovers Narnia on her own. That's my favorite scene. Just because like
I almost said that. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're going into the world that you have read about or like even just are anticipating, and when she finally goes there, it's so magical. The snow, and like I have like my
Your
background is
background?
literally
Yeah.
that scene. I think it just adds that shift from their life, like their real life, like because it's very distant and sad and very
There's a lot going
restrained. Yeah,
on.
there's a lot happening, and the colors of the like when they're in the house, and even when they were on the train and stuff, like it's very dark. And then as soon as you just get transported into Narnia, it's so magical and like bright. And then when she meets Mr. Tumnus, I think it's fun to me, even though he is very like shy and awkward. I think they're both shy and awkward in the very, very beginning. And I thought it was just like, it's very fun to see them like warming up to each other. And then Mr. Tumnus betrays Lucy, but that's just a whole different, we don't talk about that. That's
I
a whole different story.
know. When he
I
was like, I'm doing it
ugh.
right now. She's like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm kidnapping you. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, this is like creepy.
Yeah, it was really creepy in the movie. And I
Yeah.
was like,
I
James
was like,
McAvoy, chill out.
Right. In the
scary.
book, it almost feels more like a cartoon-ish thing where he's
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to betray you. And she's like, why would you do that? And he sort of breaks down, but it's almost silly, you know? And,
Yeah.
but like in the movie, he's so intense. He really sells
Very.
it, but it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, like when he's playing his flute thing and she starts to like doze off and it
Yeah.
starts to get dark and I'm like
He's like a serial killer, like
I'm like,
Split.
"Ooh,
Yeah,
Like,
it's so
yes."
spooky.
I'm like, Mr. Tumnus, stop.
it's like, you're creepy. Like,
Yeah, it's too much.
okay, so, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I was gonna say, let's compare. So, what scenes or moments were left out of the film that you wish had been included? Like, for me, I don't really think there was anything. I feel like they included everything from the book and then they added more. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
Right. For me, it was just the feeling was a little off. Like I think the plot, like you said, was they stayed true to it.
Mm-hmm.
That I thought it was. Oh, that's the next question. Yeah,
That's okay.
I think I thought it was pretty true to the book. But as far as things they added, I think the little intro that gives context, because in the book it just kind of assumes you understand about kids being sent away during the war and that kind of thing, and like anyone who lived in London in the 50s would have firsthand experience with that. So but like I think giving it a little more context in the movie was a great idea, where it's like it made for a little bit longer intro, but they still got to Narnia pretty fast.
They did, yes. I did enjoy that intro. And like I said, I remember when I watched it with my son, he was like, why? It was kind of interesting because he was like, why are they having to be shipped away? Like, why are all these kids having to leave? It like brought that question up. He was like, why is this happening? So I had to like pause, explain. He's like, okay. So then he goes to the house and he's like, so now they're at this random person's house. I was like, right. And then he sees Narnia and as a kid, and it's cool seeing it from his perspective because he was just like, oh my gosh, it's like they're in a whole new world now, like a better world. And I was like, well, yeah, I was like, kind of right now it's evil until
Yeah.
Aslan takes care of it, but like yes, it's like you're going to a fantasy world. But so I did enjoy that information in the beginning, just to kind of help set the tone of like this is what's going on in the real world, and then now let's go into Narnia and deal with this war that's happening in a fantasy world. But yeah, I agree also that they got to Narnia pretty quick. Like I thought it was going to be a while, but I was like, oh, it's like still the first half of the movie. Like it's still happening. So I enjoyed it too.
I feel like the only thing, because what I wrote down here, we're on the question where it was like if they added anything new or
Yeah, we can
interesting,
go
right?
into yeah.
Because in like the first question, there
There
was
was
nothing anything.
yeah.
Yeah, there was nothing for me. But I did notice, I don't know, maybe I'm delusional and I really was like not paying attention in the book. But Peter doesn't fight the White Witch personally, right? Like she doesn't he defeats the wolf thing, but he doesn't actually personally fight the witch, and they added that into the movie and I was like, that's crazy for her, a grown-ass woman, to be fighting
Yeah,
children
they
like
had to
that.
have that showdown, huh?
Yeah, they had to
Yeah.
have like that head-on first type battle, and I think it gives like Peter that cinematic like intensity, like at high stakes for Peter, even though I was like, oh, I forgot he was there. Like the
Like
whole
that
thing. It was the
yeah.
whole
Well,
thing.
like
When I
that's like
watched it on screen, I was like, oh, I forgot Peter fought her. I thought it was like,
I thought it
for
was
some
Edmund.
reason, yeah, for some reason in my head, I thought it was the older sister.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know why I thought she was the one that did it, but she did nothing the entire movie. So
Oh no,
I was like,
when she showed up at the very end, it was like the very end where she shot her one
yeah,
arrow.
the one arrow she shot. I was like, good for
I
you.
was like, okay, there it is. I was wondering, I was like, when is she gonna shoot her arrows? And she shot her one arrow, and I was like, okay,
Nice.
and there it is.
That's all
She's
she
done.
needed. That's all she
Sure,
needed.
the Greta Gerwig version will have more badass,
She'll probably be the
moments,
one
Yeah.
who does all of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably. But yeah, that was the only thing that I made note of, like what was in the movie and what wasn't in the movie, and vice versa with the book and stuff. But everything else, I think, It's good.
Yeah, I think it did pretty true to the book. And like we mentioned plenty of times, the battle scene I think had to be like totally amplified for the movie purpose to make it, well, here we are. This is the war. Let's show the fighting. When Edmund got stabbed, I don't know why, but I was like, I felt so sad for Ed. I hated that character so much. But when he got stabbed, I was like, oh my God, Edmund.
She's like, I hate you. And then he gets stabbed. Oh my God. You
I
did
was
not.
like, no.
Well, he's still a kid.
Yeah.
I know. And then Lucy
It's
saves
true.
it. And then I thought, dang, Lucy has to go around every single one of his Aslan's people and like drop everybody. I was like, she's such a trooper. That's what I
He
thought.
really
I was
is.
like,
Thanks, Santa.
yeah. Edmund's like, where's mine? They're like, you were bad. Wait till next year.
We don't talk about that.
I did think the battle, works for a movie. I thought,
Yes.
yeah, like, again, it made the movie very different than the book, but it's a movie and you got to get butts in seats and it's entertainment and you have to enjoy it with the popcorn.
Right.
Really.
Be like, oh. Well, yeah, that was our next question was like, did you guys feel the battle scene was a good adaptation choice? I do. I feel like I can always use a battle scene. I don't mind it.
Yeah. Who doesn't love an epic battle scene?
Because if it was
especially
like
in a fantasy world,
if it was like the book where I think it's mostly Lucy and Susan with Aslan, and it's like that journey, and they show up to the battlefield, and it's like almost already done. Like we don't even in the book we don't even see it really happening.
I remember my mom being a little annoyed at the battle because it is quite long in the film, and the I think it was because we thought of it as such a kid's book, like a little kid's book. And so like now I don't think it's a big deal, but like at the time I do remember my mom being a little annoyed because it's like people might bring little kids to this and not expect there to be like this epic, 10-minute slaughter.
Yeah, because it was like you saw people literally getting like killed, they're at their heels, their legs like cut off. I was like, oh my God. I was like, this is kind of cool though. I mean, it was nice.
Yeah.
It was nice. I did get like emotional. I don't know why I got emotional when Peter, for someone who's like barely there, when he does his one line where he's like, for Narnia and Aslan. And I was like, yes, like, let's go. Let's do this battle scene. Say your one epic line and let us go. And the fact that he has a unicorn.
Yeah.
I was like, not Peter with the unicorn. He has to have such a different horse than everybody else.
I was like, where did you come from, Peter? Watching the movie, I'm like,
well, and and I feel like in the real world, he wants to join the war, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a scene where he's on the train and he sees like the army, the kids in the war.
That was a good callback.
Yeah, and that he wants to fight it. So and then during the movie, the whole time he's like, "You guys go back to the wardrobe. I'll fight this fight." And Susan and Lucy are like, "No, like you're crazy. We're the stars of the show."
They're like, anyways, Peter.
They're like, you go back, Peter. We're the stars. We'll take it from here.
Lucy's like, I'm already in it.
I did think in the movie, because the Christ allegory obviously wasn't played up in the movie a lot. You almost got this like white man thing with like Aslan coming in and saving the day at the minute. It's that like the one like adult white character. I know he's a lion, but it's Liam Neeson's voice. It's just like he comes in and saves the whole day, with his like 3 minutes of screen time. And like and it's funny because in the book you don't get that as much because it is more of like a allegory, and Aslan is kind of this more of a presence like that you feel through the book, where they mention him a few times in the movie, but it's more of like a reveal. It's Liam Neeson to save the day. So it was kind of I don't think it was intended at all, but I think it was just kind of this unfortunate like thematic little undertone. Not unusual for 2005, but like
that's true.
Okay, and I know we've already touched base on it, but how did the tone differ between the book and the movie?
Whimsical, dreamy versus like dark and more polished. Like I mentioned, like the book it felt kind of messy, which I always thought was charming about it, but the movie was more like tight and put together, and you could feel that it was an arc that was going to continue into the sequels and that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
Yeah, the movie was more epic and dramatic, and the book is very gentle and whimsical, and
that's why I'm really interested. I know we're only doing the 3 movies that were made, so we're only doing 3 books. But like as a side note, like I kind of want to venture into all 6 books because I want to know.
Read more.
Yeah, I want to know like how the story really goes and like what continues to happen beyond the 3 movies. So I'm actually really interested to read the entire series and see what could have been, I guess.
Or we talk about it now. I'm gonna have to go read those books.
Yeah, I want to
see.
I want to read it because I want to see if the writing style changes at all either, like as well. Like I want to see if he if changes it up in some way or whatever,
or if it's consistent.
Well, yeah, or if it's the same vibes. Because if it's the same vibes, then I'll keep reading them all. Because I did enjoy reading it, listening to it is very nice. So
yeah,
I want to see. But if it changes, and I'm like, oh, this is like every other book now. Okay. So
she's like, it's book 5 is where it gets.
From what I remember, it gets a little more serious, a little denser. But like I think, C.S. Lewis still has that light charm to his prose, you know.
I know that, and this is just doing the research. I think it was like book 6, his last one. It's kind of like the prequel. It's about Aslan and the White Witch and like the start of it. So, and then I was reading an article, and it was like, these are the order he wrote it. But if you were to read it chronologically, this would be the first book, the prequel, and then he went into Narnia, and then it went down the line. And I was like, maybe I'll have to go and read that last book first before I continue reading all these other books, just to get the prequel of it.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Okay, so let's talk. We didn't really talk much about her, but let's talk about the White Witch, the book versus Tilda Swinton. How do we feel she did? What was your thoughts of the White Witch in the book, and then like how she was portrayed in the movie? Because I feel like she was different, same but different.
Very different. In the book, she was like Wicked Witch, fairy tale, like eat you in your gingerbread house kind of, you know, fairy tale witch. And then like in the movie, Tilda Swinton brought her to life in a very real way. She was like scary and twisted, and those white dreadlocks and like just
when she slapped Edmund, I was like,
I mean, just exactly.
I was like,
oh
whoa.
my god.
She slapped him, and I said,
she's so mean after the very like. She's really nice when she gives him the Turkish Delight, but from that moment on, she's so mean. I'm like, dude, you were hooked easy, man. Like, she really 360, you know. And she never gives him any Turkish Delight again. And I'm like, it's like all you want is for him to get more Turkish Delight because she's so mean about it.
And she's like, and the way she yells at him, like when she first meets him, and he's like, "Well, can I have some more Turkish Delight?" And she like yells at him. And then she's like, she's like, no, like, bring me your siblings first, and then I'll get you more. And then when he shows us the castle, and he's like, I just wanted to see you. And she like yells at him. And then when she slaps him and then like almost comforts him, I was like, she's so scary.
She messed up.
I was like,
she's very cold and cruel, but in a very quiet and like chilling kind of way. Like even just like her expressions and her body language. Like she doesn't sitting in the carriage or just sort of standing around. She's creepy. And I'm like, ooh, I would not want Turkish Delight from you, ma'am. No, thank you. I would walk away.
No, I thought she did such a good job playing the White Witch. She was very terrifying. Even as an adult watching it, I was like, she's so scary.
Yeah. Truly.
Like, you watch some movies or you read some books and there's sometimes you have like a feeling for the villain, right? You're kind of like, you want the villain to succeed, or you just have like a heart for them. But her, you're just like, no, like I don't want anything to do with you. Like, I hope Aslan defeats you. Like,
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
her whole
somehow she
vibe.
managed to do like pure evil without being too mustache twirly. Like it was quality in the acting there because obviously it was written as over the top, but she really embodied it well.
Let's talk about nostalgia and legacy. So, why do you think, or do you think that Narnia has lasted in like pulp culture? Do you think like to this day people enjoy Narnia, the movie or the book? Is it still talked about? Like, what are your thoughts on it?
I think it has a sticky quality to it because C.S. Lewis is tapping into something that every child has, is this idea of escaping to another reality. Peter Pan, I mentioned earlier, going to Neverland, or like just
Mm-hmm.
this other world that you create. And, at least for me, that was like a huge part of my childhood is just living in out my adventures and, in my
Yeah.
head and imagining. So I think it's not as much about maybe the theology as it is
Mm-hmm.
about this idea of wonder and escape and just being. I mean, literally, these kids live a whole nother life, right? And then they come back to their
I
childhood for
know.
dinner. So
Yeah.
it's like, that's kind of what we do as kids, or at
Mm-hmm.
least as, creative kids,
Yeah,
imaginative kids.
yeah. No, I agree. I think the idea of discovering a whole new world in a wardrobe, it's just magical. So being able to, as for kids to read that, like to give that imagination, that fantasy, and like you mentioned earlier, like I don't think a lot of kids play now, but like when you were kids, you'd be like, let's play this like fantasy world of like pretending that we can go through this wardrobe, this closet,
Mm-hmm.
and enter a whole nother world or battle scenes or whatever. So I think the fantasy aspect is really good and the magical it's just the idea of the wardrobe. I think when people talk about the Chronicles of Narnia, it's this one that they know, right? The Lion,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Witch, and the Wardrobe. I'm sorry, I don't really know the other ones. I can't even tell you the titles of them, and we're gonna do episodes on that. But we know the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So I think it's still popular to this day. 20 years
Mm-hmm.
since the movie. I mean, and the book came out in the 50s. Like, it's still popular. I feel like to the point where
Yeah.
they want to remake it or do something with it again. So
Yeah. It speaks to everyone's imagination, I think, whether you're a kid or an adult. Because when I watched it as an adult, I was like, this is just so fun. Like going
yeah,
to, like, I would, even now as an adult, I would love to go into a wardrobe and walk into
say.
Narnia and have some tea with Mr. Tumnus, not get betrayed, but have some tea, and like I think it's a comfort movie for a lot of people, and it's a
Hmm.
comfort book for a lot of people because it does what I think it does what a fantasy book is supposed to do, and it's just to transport you into just this other world.
Hmm.
So yeah, I don't know, I
No,
like
I
it.
agree. I agree. Okay, so let's talk about Greta Gerwig's reboot.
Yeah, I know nothing about it
Okay, so I had to
until
do some research on
I
it. So when I did research, at first I thought she was just gonna redo the Chronicle, like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and I was like, okay, whatever. But I did research, so she's looking to start with the sixth book, which is the first book chronologically, right? The Magician's Nephew. Um, and then she's also there's talks as like Meryl Streep as Aslan, but that just like doesn't sit well with me. I'm so sorry. And I love Meryl Streep.
also love Meryl Streep, but like, why Liam Neeson is still alive?
That's right.
Yeah, like can he still be the voice of Aslan? I don't understand.
That's
I think
interesting.
if the Greta Gerwig can obviously be a bit heavy-handed sometimes, but that's just kind of our postmodern artistic culture that we live
Yeah.
in. But
Hmm.
but I think where I don't know, audiences just don't get metaphor anymore, or if they do, like I don't know what it is about movies and stuff. It's like so heavy-handed, and they don't give
Yeah.
any viewers any credit at all whatsoever. But regardless of that, I think Greta Gerwig can be very clever. I would love to see her keep some of the whimsy and the childlike, you know, uh,
Yeah.
uh, and maybe
Because from
not
the
have
book,
to try to push it into the epic category so much and just kind of leave it more as like a fairy tale. I would be interested to see. Not that you can have pretty dark and twisted stuff in fairy tales too, but
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be such a real, like Lord of the Rings. That's the cool thing about, that world is it feels real and lived in and kind of like thought out to the granular level. Whereas like fairy tales, it's just more like, and then this could pop up and you never know what's going to happen. And there's no logic to it. It's all over the place. It could be Wonderland. And I think if she keeps some of that quality, it could be more interesting. But I don't know. I'll watch it, I'm sure. I watch everything. So.
I'll watch it too. Say, I'll watch it too.
I'll watch it just to see.
What do you think on it, Tiff?
Well, I didn't know that she was going to do a reboot until yesterday, so I was like, that's cool. I just hope, like, I think the only thing, like, the first thing I thought was, like, I hope that her movie isn't, like, a slap to the face to, like, the book or to the first movie. I haven't seen the other one, so I don't know if they're any good at all, but this one, this movie we're talking about, I hope that she doesn't, like, go against everything that we grew up on watching. I do love Meryl Streep, but, like, there's no need to make Aslan Meryl Streep, especially if Liam Neeson is still around and still acting too. Like, he's very much still acting. Like, he's probably like, yo, what? You gave my role away. Like, I feel like that some of the creative decisions, I hope they're not too, like, woke or drastic. Like, I hope she's not. Yeah, I don't know. We'll just have to see.
We'll have to wait and see. We'll definitely have to talk about it once it does come out because I'm very curious.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you guys could visit Narnia for one day, what would you do? I think Tiff already mentioned she would go to Mr. Tumnus.
Yeah, I would have tea with Mr. Tumnus. I would love to just sit by the fire, listen to him play his flute, and I won't fall asleep, and I read, and then, like,
Don't
maybe
let
go
him
play in
roofie
the
you.
snow. Yeah, I don't want him to roofie me. I'd pass on that, but we would go play in the snow and like just hang out. Like, I feel like that would be so fun. I wouldn't want to, like, walk miles and miles to see other things. I'd be like, I'm good here.
Stay
I'm
by
good
the
right here.
the lamppost.
Yeah.
See, I would immediately go find some of those talking animals and hang out with them because
Yeah.
I love animals. I always think I can talk to animals anyway. So
That's what I said. I'd work my way to the castle because I have to see the castle, and I'd want to meet all the creatures and just like take my time because like time literally doesn't exist, right? Like in the movie they grew up to be adults.
Yeah.
And when they went
That's
back,
true.
it was like only like minutes, an hour maybe later. So I would take my time. I'd go to the castle, I'd meet all the creatures, I'd meet like Mr. and Mrs. Beaver because they seemed really nice. Like,
I loved them.
I did too. Those were sad when they went and saw their friends all got frozen.
Yeah, that was really sad.
I was like, that's sad. I know.
I was like, stop. Okay, let's get to rating the books and the movies. So in your opinion, which one was better, the book or the movie?
I think the book, just because it does have that childlike quality, and it's just classic, and it's very. It's funny because it's C.S. Lewis, but it's not heavy-handed. It's not like in your face with the whole Christian metaphor and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, I thought the movie was fine, and it was a 2005, Christmas, really blockbuster type movie. But I thought the book, I would, if I hadn't been doing this podcast, I probably never would have gone and rewatched it. So, but the book, I definitely was like, even last year, trying to get my son to read it and stuff. So I think, it has more sticking power. It's more of a classic.
Yeah. I chose the movie, but that's probably just because I love movies. I don't know.
You're just a movie person.
I am.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the movie, and I like this first movie. Now, when we move on to the second and third, maybe my opinions will change. But for the one that introduces it all to us, I thought I really enjoyed the movie. When I watched it, I was like, at the end of it, I was like, I really enjoyed this. And I'm surprised it took me so long to rewatch it. And I liked that I watched it with my family and now like my son and he enjoyed it. So I was like, this is nice, like introducing stuff that I watched and that I read to my kids. Um, yeah, I really did enjoy the movie. So for me, I liked the movie. What about you, Tiff?
So I was thinking the movie, but the more that I thought about how reading the book made me like feel, it really like in my head, I think that book was such a refresher for me, like brain wise, and I
Mm-hmm.
think like vibe wise. And I think that I probably would actually pick the book up again or listen to it if I ever was in the need for like a palate cleanser of like some sorts with
Yeah.
the books that I'm reading, or like just something to like chill me out. So I honestly, I'm changing my answer from movie to book, because now that I think
See
about it,
the
I'm like, I would,
discussion?
yeah,
See what
like now that I think
happens?
about it, I'm like, I really would pick the book back up again. And and
Yeah.
that's sometimes that's rare for me when it comes to books. Like once I read it, I'm like done. I won't pick it up again. But this one, I'm like, I would actually go back for it for more. So I don't know about the other
Nice.
ones. We'll see how that goes. But
See, the podcast helped us all talking about it. It like changed your view on your
yeah,
thought.
it did.
Interesting.
It did indeed. So on the book, how many stars out of 5 would you guys give it? I would give it a 4.5 out of 5.
I put 4. I think it's an important work. I think it is very well written, obviously. I mean, the prose
Mm-hmm.
are perfect, but it's just as far as like its place in literary history and everything. But I
Yeah.
think it's a 4 for me just because it's not 100% my thing, but I think it's
Yeah.
really good.
Same. I gave it a 4. I thought it was a great read. It's a nice refresher, especially for people who do like adults who do read constantly. This was a nice like, oh, this is like almost taking you back. Like, oh, this is
Yeah.
why I read fantasy, right? Like this is
I,
why I read these kind of books. So I enjoyed that aspect. It's not a book I will die on the hill telling people like, you guys need to read Narnia.
right.
You have to read this book. It's
It's not
life changing.
it's
It's like,
not that
no,
for
it's
me.
not.
But I did enjoy reading. I actually enjoyed it, so I also gave it a 4.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
A nice way to kill an afternoon.
Yeah.
exactly.
If you're
I
a
was
Yes.
fast reader.
Yeah.
okay. So let's rate the movie. So out of 5 stars, what do you guys give the movie?
I gave it a 3. I mean, that's being critical, I know, but just because I thought some of the acting was weak, and I know
Mm-hmm.
it's child actors, so, it is what it is. And I thought the production value, even for 2005, missed the mark a few times throughout the movie, which for a movie that's as high budget and 2.5 hours long. I mean, I know movies were long
I
Yeah, that movie
in
is
know.
2005,
long.
but like 2.5 hours, and for the production value to be kind of clumsy. So for me, it was a 3, but an enjoyable 3. And so I mean,
Yeah.
I love many a bad movie. I love many a 2-star movie. So I'm not saying I didn't
Yeah.
like it, but yeah, that's
Gave it a 4. I don't know. Like I said, I really enjoyed the movie. If I could sit there without having to pause it and like walk away and be, you know what I mean?
yeah,
I could sit there and just watch the whole thing and be it like not having to pick up my phone. Like I'm actually like focused on it. That is a good movie for
it's
me.
awesome.
So I gave it a 4 out of 5. I really liked it. I just love uh Tilda. She did such a good job. She was
Yeah,
so
Yeah.
terrifying. She did good. Mine, I mean, yes, the CGI, like the animals, those were like, I did call it out when I was watching the movie. I was like, okay, why did they look like they were just honestly like placed on, like just click, like placed there. But besides that, overall, I did enjoy this movie. I feel like I enjoyed this one. I'm speaking too soon, but I think I would like, this is probably my favorite out of the other ones. And I'm saying that because I've never seen the other ones. Because I don't know how those are going
That's
to
fair.
be. I'm really nervous to watch those.
Sometimes our wild cards, the ones that we haven't seen, end up being the
Our
ones that you
favorite.
love
I
the
know.
most.
We'll see.
I don't love them, but you love them, and I love that for you.
We'll see.
I gave this one like a 3.5 for a 4. I did it for the adult actors because
Yes, it was
I
the adult
love Liam
actors.
Neeson and James and Tilda, and they did great. And Lucy carried the entire family. all the way through. So I thought it was good. I think other than like the CGI stuff and whatnot, I think they did well. So before we close out, we are jumping into our ARC corner, which is my
That's
favorite corner
right.
to be in.
Me too. In this segment, we shine a spotlight on an author and their upcoming or recently released book. And naturally, we have to give this corner to you, Christian, and your book, Lily Starling and the Voyage of the Salamander.
Yes. So why don't you share with our listeners what your book is about?
Yes, please.
Sure. So it's a YA sci-fi novel, and um, it's really about and why I chose to write in the YA category. I have always loved sci-fi and the ability to sort of talk about themes and things that are very relevant, but you kind of put people at ease with the adventure and the space and the all the fantastical stuff, and so you draw people in with that, and then you give them something to think about, and so it's really about loneliness and this idea of being on your own, or being an outsider, or looking from the outside in, and I think it's a very important message for everyone, but especially for young people, because I think they have the most inclination of feeling trapped by loneliness
Mm-hmm.
and tunnel vision and that kind of thing, and that the message is that connection will happen, and that loneliness doesn't last forever, and that there you know human connection is something that will come, and that it's really a powerful thing when you are able to uh, create your own future, and decide who you want to be, and even though sometimes I grew up as kind of an outsider, and I could go on forever about it, but and I didn't have any big trauma or anything, but I think it can be incredibly lonely sometimes. I liked being weird. That was kind of my identity, was being a weirdo and being an outsider, and but it can also be very lonely. And so I think I just wanted to give that message out there to uh, young people, especially, that it can it, there is power in that human connection, that you can sort of forge your own path and still be complete and happy, and find fulfillment. And so the protagonist, Lily, she's a the trope of strong female lead. But she subverts that to some extent. She leads with her passions. She's more like a traditional hero, and on the hero's journey, and so I just I really encourage people to check it out. And it's a long book, but you can use a bookmark, and and it has a lot of standalone adventures in it, so you don't have to it's
Oh, that's interesting.
yeah, so it's more like a season of television, where you pick it up, and you might read a one adventure, and then you can put it down for a bit, and pick it back up, and I think people who approach it in that way will enjoy it a little bit more.
Versus having to sit there and thinking that you have to
And if I've had people say, this was a gun read, I really enjoyed binging it, and I'm glad you did, but I also don't want to intimidate people, because it is 500 pages long.
Oh, wow. Yeah. No, that's amazing. And this is it just released, or it's been out for a while?
So this book, The Voyage of the Salamander, came out at the end of January, and I was working on this one and the second one, so the second one is gonna called Storm Riders. It's gonna soft release, like a pre-release, in a few weeks. So yeah, so that'll be kind of a 1-2 hit, and then will be a little bit of a longer journey till the third book. But there's going to be at least 5 books. I have them loosely sketched out. So.
Wow.
That's so cool.
That's exciting. That's really exciting.
And so for fans of that world, once they get into it, I love quirky characters. I love life is the thing I love sci-fi. I grew up on sci-fi, and sci-fi has been extremely important to me. I'm a big Trekkie and all that, but now you watch sci-fi, and some of it's really good, but it's all so depressing and very dark, and just nobody's life is this serious, right? I mean, weird stuff happens. Where's the funny shit that happens? You know what I mean? me and my wife are the same. It's like when something's really serious, we turn into stand-up comedians. It's like you find the humor in life, and
Yeah.
so I really injected a lot of like humor and a lot of weird and just like things that
That's nice.
it's a lot lighter than some sci-fi.
Yeah,
Even
I
though
was
it
just
has
gonna
heavy
say.
themes, it's still like
Mhm.
fun.
I'm
I
excited.
love
That's
that.
exciting. That's really
Yeah.
awesome. So we had some questions from your readers, from your street team that we also would love to ask. So Tiffany, and I hope, do you know how to say her last name?
Yeah, Tiffany Van Landingham. She's a very talented voice actor, and she does.
Wow.
You've probably heard her if you listen to Audible a lot. So
I do.
I
yeah,
do listen to Audible a lot.
Oh my God, that's wow. Okay. Well, she has some awesome questions. So she wants to know first, what's your writing process like? And we love asking that question. Like, are you a plotter? Are you a pantser? I mean, you seem to already have an idea that you want $5 out there.
right.
So like, what's your writing process like?
Sure. So a lot of people ask me about like where I came up with this world and that kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing, and what my process is. I I have a I think my bigger challenge is like restraint because I always have 100 ideas rolling around in my head. That's why it has taken me so long to get this on the page. It's like priorities, like which book should
Mm-hmm.
I write because I have all these stories in my head. So, but I'm definitely uh, more of a pants leaning by the seat of my pants, but I do sort of plot out the big rocks. So like
Mm-hmm.
here are the things I want to hit, and then I sit down and I start writing. And the I there's this old myth about Shakespeare where he would sit down and he would write a play from beginning to end, and he would
Yes.
very rarely go back and change things. If he needed to fix something that happened earlier in the plot, he would write it into the later part
The
of the plot.
next.
And
Right.
so that's usually whether or not he actually did that. That's kind of how I write. Like I I try to always move forward and never go back and like second guess what I've already written, because
Oh,
then, to me anyway, it feels more real. It feels more natural because in life we can't just go back and
go
like
back.
clean up our mistakes, right? So
Yeah.
it's like if I wrote myself into a corner, I have to write myself out of it.
Out
And
of it.
and I've always found that provides a certain amount of energy to the text. It doesn't feel overly edited or overly uh, planned out, and
Mm-hmm.
I like it to feel spontaneous. I also I tend to write in like a third person limited, so everything always follows Lily, even though it's not a first person perspective, but
Mm-hmm.
everything's always following her perspective. And so that helps too, because the reader comes into the story and she kind of at the beginning has like this memory thing, and she's like not sure what's going on, and so you come into the story at the same perspective as she does, where it's almost a blank slate, and then you learn things through
Oh, I
her
love
eyes.
that.
So just the whole story um, moves is always moving forward. So we don't dwell on the past too much.
I love that.
Yeah,
That's
so yeah,
refreshing to
that
hear.
is.
Because we hear a lot of, and it's nothing against other authors, but a lot of, they'll go back and rewrite, and they're just like, no, I have to
Yeah.
now rechange this chapter because it didn't really work out, or I don't know what I was doing. Let me rewrite this chapter. So to hear like you say that, that's actually really refreshing. And that's
Thank you.
exciting as a
Yeah, I
reader.
hear other authors, they're like, man, I've been working on this book for like 8 years. And I'm like, I don't know how you do that, because I have
Yeah.
to get it out there. If it's something that I'm working on, like I have to work on it till I'm done or I will go crazy. And
Yeah.
so like I don't have any unfinished work, you know.
You're like, no, I get my idea, my story out there, and I move on. Let's
Yeah,
move on to the next
exactly.
book.
Right, which I think is healthy too, because then you're not overly precious. So, and I'm sure I picked up some of this in the advertising world because, I've studied film, I've studied
Mhm.
graphic design, I've studied writing, I've studied all sorts of different art. I love painting and drawing and that kind of thing. So I do all this stuff, and I'm ADHD. I have all these stories in my head, and they're just always rattling around. And but I think the being in the advertising or the creative world or marketing
Mhm.
taught me to put my work out there over and over and over again and not be so nervous about people how they're going to receive it, because like
Yeah.
when you're a young creative, you're very precious about your work and you're scared to like oh my God,
Put it out there.
10
Yeah,
people
yeah.
are going to see this, but by the time, like the 40th time that a million people have seen your work, it's like, okay, I'm getting the hang of this now. And people move on after like 30
Yeah.
seconds of viewing
Yeah.
it anyway.
Yes.
So you get used to that. And I think that's helped me since I've decided finally to start publishing my fiction, that it's really helped me to put my work out there because I'll just do it. I don't think twice about it. It's like, this is
I love
done,
that.
boom. And
Yeah.
I think it
Just
has
move on.
helped, me stay prolific as a writer.
Yeah. You're like, I can only get better as I keep going.
Right,
Like,
exactly, right?
just keep going and going. Oh,
That's so inspiring.
I was gonna ask Tiff, like, is that inspiring for you? Because Tiff is a writer.
It is.
So, and she's like, she always calls me or texts me. She's like, I'm just stuck on this chapter, on this page. I don't know what to do. But so hearing you say that, I hope, Tiff, you're just like, fuck it. I'm just gonna write it and let's get it out there.
So the one thing I don't like to do is go back and reread earlier chapters I wrote because I'm like, oh, I was in a different headspace then. Like, it doesn't make sense to me right now.
Right.
And then I get irritated, and I'm like, guys, I don't want to write anymore because now I'm
I
irritated.
do feel
This
that.
doesn't
I feel
match.
that.
Mhm.
Yeah. So like now I'm like, okay, well now I'm just gonna write my book and I'm just gonna write it, and I'm not gonna backtrack. I mean, obviously I'm gonna go back and check for like errors and
Yeah.
stuff, but I'm not gonna rewrite an entire chapter.
I will
just
tell you
because
what
it
I
didn't
do.
fit.
Okay, so I write a chapter or a scene, sometimes just a scene, and then I will load it into a software that reads it back to me in like a narrator voice.
Mhm.
And while I'm doing something else, I'll put headphones in just like I'm listening to an audiobook, and I'll listen to the scene I just wrote. And inevitably, when I hear someone reading it to me, then I'm like, oh, okay. And that's the only round of like tweaks I make. I'll like write down anything I want to change from it being read back to me. I'll change it, then I'll leave it alone until like I'm done with the book. So
Tiff, you should do that
I'll
versus
have to do
you
that,
reading
yeah.
it yourself because you can get like lost in your brain, right? Like reading it yourself.
Yeah,
and you're
I've
just
got
like,
ADHD. My brain's
yeah, it really
everywhere
helps.
all the
Like,
time.
oh,
I'll
you
go for
should
a
do
walk or
that.
something and listen to it, and then I'll be like, oh, okay, that doesn't sound right, or I repeated myself or something, like I wouldn't have noticed when I first wrote it. And
What
then,
an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
I'm
Tiff,
very
you should do
inspired.
that.
I am. I
Yeah.
will.
The other thing
Thank you.
that's really
wow.
helped me is if I'm stuck, is I took acting classes at some point in my past, and I'll like start to try to put myself in the minds of the characters and like just act out little scenes with them, and
Mhm.
inevitably that kind of unblocks things. So those are my two methods of like solving writer's block, is like listening
See,
to
Tiff,
it
you're learning.
or
I'm gonna go into
like
the day
doing like an
now.
improv session.
Yeah. But that's so interesting. I'm going into the day like ready to write now.
Right.
Like I'm gonna
Good.
have
I love
full
that.
on
Don't lose that,
conversations
because
with my character.
I'll
No, I
get that
won't.
feeling, and then if I don't sit down right away, I'm like, I lose it. So
You're like,
Yeah.
anyway.
I'm so inspired.
Okay, so another question, and this is like a combined question for both Tiffany and Amy. When did you start writing? So like how old were you? And then also, was there a defining moment that made you knew you wanted to be a writer? So let's get your origin story,
yeah,
essentially.
absolutely. So I've always been very creative. Like if somebody asked, everybody has that answer when you're a kid, like what do you want to be when you grow up? I always said artist. But that meant multiple things to me, and
Mhm.
I love to draw, I love to create, I love to act things out with my stuffed animals. I would take like mini movies and stuff with my toys, that kind of thing. I
Yeah.
was a very creative kid and always busy. We were kind of poor, and I'm actually grateful for that, because I was like, in my head all the time, imagination, like
Yes.
everything I was doing. But when I first started writing, I think I've been telling stories since birth, but like I remember writing comic books when I was like 9 or 10, and I was briefly really into the Flash. I think my favorite superhero has always been Batman consistently, but like
Yeah.
the Flash, for some reason, I was like really into the Flash one year, and I started this comic series called The Flash and the Marble, and there was this guy who could turn into a big marble. I don't know. And they fought this guy called Rice Raider, who was this big green robot. I don't know where his name came, and he would like spin around really fast and create these like vortexes, and Anyway, so and
So
I
cool.
drew the whole thing with colored pencil and like wrote it in like terrible spelling. And but so that's the earliest I could remember. But like I've been wanting to create and put things out there and tell stories my whole life. I think I didn't become as confident in my ability to publish things until more recently, after being a creative director for a number of years, and just like whatever, I'll put my name
Yeah.
out. I'll put my name on it, sure.
You're
Yeah.
like, who cares? What's the worst that it could happen? I mean,
Yeah.
really.
But as far as defining moments, I think that it was, really when I was in, I went to school for graphic design, and I've always liked graphic design too, but I was in a bookstore actually when I made that decision, and I was like reading a book on graphic design, and I was like, I really like this, and it's marketable, so I think I'll go to
Go
school
to
for
school
this.
for it.
But I think in that program, that was a defining moment for me because I learned how to professionally, the difference between like um, working for a client and creating art for yourself, and they're two very different things. And now with my writing, as an author, as a self-published author, I am kind of doing both. I'm my own client, so it's interesting now because it's the first time I've tried to promote my work commercially, but it's my work instead of
Yeah.
like commercially for
Other.
another brand. So I've done like lots of art and I've done lots of commercial art, and now I'm doing like a blend, and it's fun.
Wow.
That's
You've
cool.
had so much experience. That is your journey is
I
really
am all over the
interesting.
place.
No, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
You're just like living your life. That's how I feel. You're just, what you want to do, or you're just like, I'm going to do this. This sounds cool. Like, let's do
Yeah.
this. Like, it's almost inspiring just to like, let's just do
Thank
it. Who
you.
cares? Okay. So let's talk about your book real quick, your first book.
Yeah.
So do you have a favorite moment, a character, or a scene in that book that you love?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the main character, Lily, is, she actually has a lot of my personality, and a lot, it's interesting because people are like, why did you decide to make this protagonist like a young woman? And um, I think there's a certain set of expectations that readers come to the table with, right? When it's this young female character, and they expect her to be vulnerable, or they expect different certain set of behaviors, or her journey to go a certain way. And so I kind of like to play with people in that way and like subvert their expectations uh, in that regard. But she is definitely my favorite part of the book, is just creating this character who feels very real to me now. And like I think it's still my favorite part is like the introduction, which is the only part that I write in her own words. Like in this book, the first person perspective it's the introduction, and that's it. And um, she talks about how loneliness is like a cage, and like how um, but it doesn't have to last forever, and eventually you'll start to see the edges of the cage. And she talks about how when you make those connections, it's like someone hands you a piece of themselves, and says, here, take this, you'll need it. And like
Yeah.
that, to me, it was actually much more emotional than I expected writing
Oh,
that part.
yeah.
And this was when I had decided I'm going to sit down and I'm going to start this story, because I had enough pieces in my head. I had outlined a lot of things and come up with different characters. And so I wrote this introduction first, and it's the first thing in the book. And I remember actually getting emotional writing it and reading it back to myself. And so that doesn't happen very often, especially after you've been creating art for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was special. So
Oh my God. Was it like therapeutic? Were you just like, wow, like I didn't realize I had all this
yeah, because it came
emotion?
together. I think I inherently knew why I was doing this project, but that was when it all came together in my mind. I was like, this is the point. This is why I'm doing this. It's because
Yeah.
this is meaningful to me in a way, and I think that it will touch other people. And it's been really cool to see when people get it, like on Amazon reviews or whatever, and they'll say, this really hit me. And I'm like, oh, somebody got it. Like
You're
just
like,
Yes,
in the
someone
great.
wild. I think that's
understands.
really neat.
Yeah.
You know, it's one thing when your mom tells you your work is really
Yeah.
good, but it's another thing when like
A complete
somebody out
stranger.
there bought your
Yeah.
book and read it and loved it and was touched by it. So that's
Oh,
pretty
that's
neat.
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, so also, how did you come up with the Salamander as the ship's name?
So there is an interest, and you'll find out a little more about this in the second book, but in the future, in this universe, Earth is very different. And I like this idea because we find salamander as just kind of a goofy word.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? It's like
Yeah.
weird and it sounds kind of funny. And then, so there's a section in the book where Captain Callan, who's like this very serious starship captain in the book, and he's like doing this speech about how noble the creature, the salamander is, and how like, and so like, there's just like this flip where it's like, what if people, and you look throughout history, and this has happened in our history, but it's like, what if people start thinking things that we find silly are very serious, and you
Yeah.
know, things that we find serious as very silly. And so there's
Mhm.
more of that when they go to Earth in the second book, but you get a little hint of it in this book where it's like, oh, very fish out of water. Like Lily's thrown into this universe, and she's like, this noble starship, the Salamander, what? Like, you know,
Yeah.
and it just adds to her fish out of water experience.
Oh, I love
Like,
that.
me too. I love the like, from what you're saying, like, the whimsicalness of it. Like, I enjoy
It
it.
does
I
have a little
enjoy
harken
it.
back. It's a little Easter
Mhm.
egg. There was this old Horatio Hornblower style sci-fi series of books where the name of one of the captains was Salamander, and it
Mhm.
was just very pulpy sci-fi, like the old style sci-fi with the monsters
Yes.
Mhm.
and the
Yeah.
you know bottle-shaped rockets and everything, and you know, like swashbuckling, you know,
Yeah.
pre Star Wars, pre Star Trek, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's a little homage to that because it is kind of pulpy, my style.
Oh, that's exciting.
I love it. I'm a fan. Um, so where can we get your book?
Yeah, where can everybody get your book,
Yeah.
please?
I
So
would love to
it's
know.
available pretty much wherever you buy your books. You know, if you want the paperback and you don't live in the Baltimore, Pennsylvania, or the Maryland, Pennsylvania area, we are in some stores around here. But if you want the paperback and you want to support a local bookstore, please buy it off of bookshop.org because you could put in your local bookstore on there and it'll support your own local bookstore if you
Oh,
buy it
that's
I
on
didn't
there.
know.
cool.
Yeah, yeah. So bookshop.org is great because if you're buying a physical copy, so like you know, I won't totally like I'm not totally walking away from Amazon. I know some people have because they're a
Mhm.
huge evil corporation, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's
No,
hard to
yeah.
move
Yeah.
without supporting big evil corporations. So, but you know, I do still sell on there, but I do encourage people if they want to buy a physical copy to go on to bookshop.org and buy it, or to find a store that has it. Um, or if you sign up to be on my street team, if you go to churstpublishing.com/arc and sign up for my street team, I'll send you a free copy of the paperback. But
Ew.
yeah.
I didn't know about that book org though. It's what is
Yeah,
it? Bookshop.org?
bookshop.org. Yeah. And so obviously, so if you go to lilystarlingbook.com or churstpublishing.com,
Mhm.
you'll see a pretty web page there, and you can find all the links to buy it. But yeah, bookshop.org is a good one to support local bookstores.
Yes, and we love to support our
Yeah, we
indie
do.
authors and our stores here.
Local bookstores. Yeah,
Yes.
because we live out here in Vegas and you
Yeah.
don't get a lot of local bookstores.
Right.
So
There's
whenever
like a
we find them,
handful,
yeah,
literally a
whenever we find
handful.
them, we go there and we spend a lot of time there because we're
Yeah.
like,
And a lot of times, local bookstores, small bookstores, even indie bookstores
Mhm.
are kept afloat by big publishing, so you won't find a lot of indie authors in the indie bookstores.
yeah,
So,
Right.
so yeah, it's a mix. You have to like, you know, if it's not, there's no perfect solution, but you
yeah.
know, I'm one of those guys. Like I see every movie. I have like, you know, I go support my local bookstore, but I also have like a Kindle, you know, account and all that
We've
stuff.
got our
So
Barnes
I've got
and Noble
everything.
account.
Yeah,
We've got our
right.
Barnes
Got my
and
Kindle for
Kindle.
my
yeah.
it's a whole thing.
We
We
try to
support where we
all.
can.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
Yeah.
definitely. Okay, so with that all being said, that wraps up our episode on the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. A huge thank you to you, Christian, for doing this episode with us. We had a great time. We hope you had a good time on this
Absolutely.
episode. Before we go, what do you want to plug in? Where can listeners find you? What do you want to share? Any last minute things you want to share with our listeners?
Yeah,
This is
if
your
you
moment.
follow me on Instagram or TikTok at Hurst Publishing, um, and that's pretty much where I post the most, and you'll find out the most information. But if you go to, lilystarlingbook.com or find me on Substack or Patreon, you can support me in different ways. I tend to share a lot of writing on Substack. It's free. I don't do a subscription Substack. And there is a great short story right now that's available for a limited time for free on there or on Kindle Unlimited called Tea with Roz that I invite everybody to check out if they're into romance. It's like it's a love
Yes.
story between Lily and a spoiler. And so anyway, check it out. It's free.
Oh, I love that. And we will
Ooh.
definitely, on our podcast, on our episode, we will definitely put all your information on there so that our listeners can just click it and they can go right to your social media page and all your amazing pages. Cause that's actually really interesting. You're like top tier. Like you're
Yeah.
doing a
Thank you
lot.
so
That's
much.
awesome.
Yes. So if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcast. Also follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Official Page to Picture to keep up with everything book related, movie adaptations, Liam Neeson maybe, and more.
And on our Instagram, you will find our link tree, which includes all our podcast episodes, guest signups, and our new merch that we just launched. We might do Liam Neeson merch.
I'm going to do an Aslan merch.
Definitely no Peter and definitely no Edmund merch.
How about
Forgot about
Santa
Peter
with some
again.
sweet weapons?
Yeah, Santa with the bow and arrow and some swords.
And I'll tell you, this Santa did not look like Santa. Like he looked like he was ready to go to war.
Yeah.
This
Exactly.
Santa.
Santa don't mess around.
Yeah, he does not mess around at all. Gosh, that's funny. And then join us this Wednesday for our bonus episode where we talk about books that represent the LGBTQ community and their authors.
Yes.
And I love those books.
I'm excited.
By the way, Lily is a queer protagonist. I didn't mention that, but yeah, but there's all
This is
sorts of
perfect.
queer representation in Lily Starling as well.
This is
I love
perfect for
it.
this episode to come out. I'm excited for that. And next week we are back in Narnia, this time with Prince Caspian, where we are going to be diving into book 2 and movie 2. And I hope it's good because I don't remember
Heard
it
things.
at all.
I've heard things about Prince Caspian, but I'm gonna go in with an open mind
Same.
and act like I didn't hear any of it.
Well, I'll be tuning in so I don't have to watch it.
Perfect.
He's like,
we'll
let
tell
me
you.
find
We'll tell you how it goes. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you all for listening. Christian, thank you again for being here.
Yes.
This was great. I'm inspired. I hope everyone else that's listening is inspired.
Yes.
And they go and check out your book and all of the great things you have to offer. But yeah, thank you. Bye.